You're live now.
Thank you. Okay, I have 5:30. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning and Development Committee meeting of February 3rd, 2021. It's 5:30. Consistent with the governor's orders, this meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law. Suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. If you're calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer device, there is a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options to be recognized to speak. I'm going to go a little bit out of the order right now and just mention that item number 3, which is a request from St. Peter's Fiesta Committee for the use of St. Peter's Park on June 25th through 27th, will be continued until the end of April. The mayor's office and community development still want to hold on planning any of these types of events right now. So they requested to our city clerk this morning to put that off. So it is tentatively booked to go in front of special events in early April and then come in front of us, but that's all contingent on COVID. So I just wanted to mention that. And Joe Novello has been notified and he agrees with that decision. The other order of business is RZ 2021-001 to amend the GZO section 5.11 inclusionary housing requirement in accordance with GZO section 1.11.2a, and that will be continued until March 3rd, 2021. We have two other orders or two other special council permits that are on the agenda. And without objection, councilors, I'd like to take the special council permit 2020-006 Schoolhouse Road number 2-4 map 262 lots 37 and 38. I'd like to take that first on the agenda. And it's because Attorney Favazza has another commitment with the Concom, and it will be much quicker than the other matter that's on the agenda, which is special council permit 2020-002 Essex Ave number 99A. So let's begin with item number 2 on the agenda. And before we do that, I want to introduce the counselors that are on the call. We have me, Val Gilman, Councilor Holgram, who's the vice chair of P&D. Barry Pett is our third member. It looks like we have a quorum of the city council because I see Sean Nolan is on the call, as well as our council president, Steve LeBlanc. We also have our interim CAO, Vanessa Krazak, on the call. Welcome, Vanessa. And at this point, I will start. I think that is all. Let me just see. Let me just check. It looks like we have Sean, Steve. That's it for counselors. And we have 11 attendees. So great. So what I'd like to do right now is introduce this item that we're going to discuss, and we'll be able to go over some of the matters that came up at our site visit. So again, it's special council permit 2020-006 Schoolhouse Road number 2-4 map 262 lots 37 and 38. It's the modification of special council permit 2017-012 pursuant to GZO section 5.29.3.3, additional uses 5.29.6.1 off-street parking requirements, 5.29.10 relief by special permit, 5.17 and 5.29.8 drive-through facilities, and 4.3 sign regulations to allocate parking spaces, obtain a new drive-through permit, and relief from signage requirements in the R10 Mixed Use Overlay District. I'd like our attorney Favaza to introduce himself. And I think at this point, what we want to do is start with the questions from the site visit, which he's received. And we can ask, we can have an open conversation to answer any questions that we have, counselors. So Attorney Favaza, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening. For the record, my name is Joel Favaza. I'm an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I am here on behalf of the Cape Ann Savings Bank and also the owner of the property, which is that fun little GXPH4 LLC. In a very limited capacity, the YMCA of the North Shore, as this affects their lot at 2 Schoolhouse Road also. So just to remind you where we are, we're at the new Fuller mixed use development. We are in the general area of this red bubble. And here are the questions that I received from the site visit. So the first one is, how many parking spots will be included in the site? Where will they be? And are they open to the general public who might not be banking? And so if we look at this site plan, in total, what I'm calling the Cape Ann Savings Bank retail parcel, there are 89 spaces required and 97 spaces provided, which means there's a surplus of 8. But as part of this reconfiguration, the YMCA parcel, which requires 250, is actually going down to 242, so a deficit of 8. Fortunately, under the terms of section 5.29 and some easements that are already on record, the parking lot is shared between the uses and between the properties. So all in all, the total demand for parking between the YMCA parcel and the Cape Ann Savings Bank retail parcel has been met. And so that, I think, answers the questions on that first one. And as I mentioned, people using the bank can park at the bank and then walk themselves over to the retail. And if they want to keep on walking and go over to the YMCA, that's fine also. Vice versa, if someone's at the YMCA and wants to head over to the bank before they get back in their car, they don't have to move their car. Parking is shared throughout the site. Where is the monument sign going to be placed? This is the monument sign itself. It's roughly 5 feet by 6 feet. And this is the overall site. The red target you see toward the bottom left is the general area. I'm going to zoom in. So as someone comes along Schoolhouse Road and takes a left into the development, it'll be in the lawn area on the left-hand side there prior to the drive-through exit. Where will the signage be located? These are the signage plans. This is facing the north, which means it's facing the large parking lot. The main entrance for in-person customers is on the right-hand side from this view, and you see that on the tower there's signage. This is the view from the Rotary. You'll see once again on the tower there is signage. This is the view from the Dolben Apartments, essentially, and there is signage on the end facade of the building. And this is the view from Schoolhouse Road, and there is signage on the awning that covers the drive-through. That is, of course, in addition to the monument sign that we just discussed. Sorry, my phone is buzzing. And this just shows you some renderings of what the signage would look like. Again, the top is facing north, which means facing the large parking lot. The bottom picture is facing toward the Schoolhouse Road and shows you the awning sign. Can you explain the width of the access road and the changes that will be made? So these blue lines show you what you had already permitted. And of note, the roadway, let's see if I can grab myself a nice little pointer. So the roadway here originally was 24 feet wide. So this old blue line was the old back of the parking spaces, and it's been widened to 30 feet. That'll make it easier as cars are turning out of the drive-through. Additionally, this old blue line shows the old footprint of this retail building. This retail building has been reduced in size to help reduce the parking demand under the section 5.29. And so and this drive aisle right here was originally 24 feet like it is on this side, and this has been widened to 28 feet. Otherwise, the parking lot remains unchanged from the original permitting. Where will the drive-through be located and how will cars progress around that corner? So this is the backside of the bank, and it shows that you can have 2 cars being serviced. The car closest to the bank building will be at an actual teller window. The car further from the building will be either using a pneumatic tube or an ATM. And per the requirements of the GDO for a drive-through permit, there is space for 3 cars to queue in each lane while still allowing a bypass lane for traffic that is not using the drive-through. And as we spoke at the site, from a practical standpoint, there is likely the ability for additional cars, if needed, to queue up on this side of the property as well. We are going to encourage employees to park in this portion of the parking lot. They will not be required to, because again, parking is shared. But if employees park in this section of the parking lot, it leaves spaces open in this small lot and on the larger lot for customers who will be coming in and out, and it will reduce the number of cars backing out into the bypass lane on a daily basis, because theoretically employees will be coming early in the morning and leaving at the end of the day, and very few will be coming and going while customers are queuing up in line. And then the last question was, is this site only a location of the bank? Where will additional retail shops be located? And we'll go back here. What's labeled as retail 2 is just the bank. The drive-through service is just the bank. The bank is going to be the sole use of this building. It is not renting out any space inside of it to other third parties. And the large building at the top of the screen marked retail 1 is the remaining retail space that was previously permitted under the original development. So again, as I mentioned before, the list of relief sounds like a lot. I think it's pretty basic. We've met all the dimensional requirements for the drive-through. Signage relief sounds huge, but again, it makes sense in the context that this is a commercial development in an R10 district. We met all the standards for relief, and since we last spoke, we got site plan approval granted by the planning board. So I will thank you. I will stop sharing my screen, and I'll be happy to take any additional questions that may have come up.
Great. Thank you, Joel. So Council Holgram and Council Pett, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much, Joel.
No, thank you, Joel.
Okay, and I have no questions as well. I think we've done a good job vetting this over the last several times. And the site visit was extremely helpful, although it was mighty cold on Saturday morning, I might add. So if there's no more questions, councilors, are we ready to make a motion? Okay.
Yes. I move that the Planning and Development Committee vote to recommend that the City Council grant to Cape Ann Savings Bank (GH-PX LLC) owner of real property known as 4 Schoolhouse Road, and Young Men's Christian Association of the North Shore Incorporated owner of real property known as 2 Schoolhouse Road (a modification of Special Council Permit 2017-12 for a Special Council Permit 2020-006 for the property located at Schoolhouse Road number 2 through 4, Assessors Map 262, lots 37 and 38, pursuant to Gloucester Zoning Ordinance Section 5.29.3.3, additional uses, 5.29.6.1, off-street parking requirements, 5.29.10, relief by special permit, 5.17 and 5.29.8, drive-through facilities, and 4.3 sign regulations to 1, modify existing permit, Special Council Permit 2017-12, 2, allocate 8 parking spaces at Schoolhouse Road number 4 to the parking space count of Schoolhouse Road number 2, 3, obtain a new drive-through permit, and 4, receive relief from signage requirements. This permit is made on the basis of plans and elevations dated November 4th, 2020, and submitted to the city clerk on November 18th, 2020, entitled Schoolhouse Road Permit Site Overview Plan. Subject to new information and/or debate that results from the public hearing, This special council permit is deemed to be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there a discussion?
No, really appreciate the level of detail and attention. Attorney Favaza, I am ready to vote this up.
And I would just piggyback on what Council Holcomb just said. I feel like this has been well vetted. It seems like all matters have been considered: traffic, size of the road, the fairness of parking. Every detail has been very much weighed into, so that is very appreciated. And
I'm very happy with the presentations that have been made. I do wish that the bank would increase the percentage of what they're giving us for our accounts, that are in their banks to all their customers as a celebration of their new location. But I know that could get us in trouble if we actually put that as part of anything. So I won't ask for any amendments in that vein.
thank you, Counselor. So I think we're ready for a roll call vote. So Counselor Holcomb,
Yes.
Counselor Pat,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman, yes. The yeses have it, 3 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Attorney
Have a good night.
Favaza.
Thank you,
Hope you
Joe.
get to
Have
your
a good night.
Concom meeting. The next order of business is Special Council Permit 2020-002 Essex Ave 99A, map 216, lot 126, GZO section 3.1.6B, building heights in excess of 35 feet, section 2.3.4, number 13, marine-related service, storage, or repair, limited primarily in the MI district to commercial fishing vessels. Section 5.5, lowland requirements, section 5.5.2 and 5.5.3 in the EB district. And this has been continued. So here we are back. We did our second official site visit. And I'd like to ask that Attorney Ellison introduces the members of your team that are here, and then we can start with reviewing the questions from the site visit. Welcome, Attorney
Thank you very
Ellison.
much, Madam Chair. For the record, Deborah Ellison, Ellison Law Office, 63 Middle Street, Gloucester. In attendance tonight are Drew and Tobin Dominic, the managers of the LLC, as well as Patrick Hurd, their general manager. And the architect was not able to join us tonight, unfortunately, so hopefully we can get by without him. What I'd like to do is share my screen, and then we can go through the questions from the site visit, if that's your pleasure.
Great, thank you.
So let's see. So these were the questions that were raised at the site visit. And like I did the last time, I sent in a memo. And so I'm going to pull that up so we can go through the memo together. The attendees at the site visit have been listed. And beginning with question 1, while at the Aiello's property, we asked the applicant to clarify the shadowing produced from the 2 flagpoles simulating the corner and the peak of the proposed structure. And so first of all, this is a photo that Tobin captured at the site visit where the shadows in the Aiello's driveway where we were standing, and you can see with the pink arrow, there are 2 shadows that were shown. And just note that the shadows were from the cranes and not from a flagpole. One of the cranes to the left is the peak. This is at 53 feet 5 inches. And the one on the right is had 2 flags. It had one on the bottom, which was the green flag for 30 feet, and on the top, the height of the eave of 49 feet. We think it's probably best to look at the shadow studies, and we just have the static pictures, as I said. So
Pardon me, Attorney Ellison, I apologize. Madam Chair, for the record, Councilor O'Hara is here. And Jamie, I think you need to mute yourself. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Counselor. I appreciate it. We now have 6 members of the City Council, which is a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first shadow study shows 8:30 on the winter solstice, which is, I believe, December 22nd. And so this shows that most of the neighborhood is in shadow from not only some of it from the building, but some of it from the other buildings in the neighborhood. So we're in January, which brings us a little bit closer, a little bit beyond that. And this is the spring equinox, which is March 22nd at 8 a.m. And you can see by March, the buildings are out of shadow at 8 a.m. So we were somewhere in between the 8:30 and the later shadow study. During the summer, can abutters see views of the river? This was asked while in abutter Coleman's yard. We'd have to speculate to comment on what the abutters can and cannot see from different areas of their property. The property at 99A Essex and the abutters properties are all at approximately the same elevation at a height of 7 feet 10 inches. And the average height that's been calculated on 99 Essex is 8 feet 6 inches. So according to the site plan, all the times of year, boats, equipment, cars are stored on 99A Essex Avenue. There's a garage on 6 Julian Road, which also has boats and trailers of all sizes. On 99A Essex Avenue, there are boats of all sizes with and without masts, some with rigging towers, some trailers and a shed. The old Yankee Fleet in the Gull Building is located on 75 Essex Ave. And all of these present obstructions to views from the abutters' homes. So to say whether there are some views from the abutters' homes over the marina property would really be speculation on our part. At the site visit, we saw views that Mr. Coleman has from his backyard, and I can show you a picture that he had given to us previously. This is from his back corner, which is facing the marina. You can see the boats and you can see the Gull, and you can see from our first site visit, the crane indicating where the corner was. So when we were at the site visit at Mr. Coleman's house, we saw also the patio side of his house where he has a beautiful view out over the marsh. Clearly, that was a much more used part of his property, and our building would not obstruct any view in that area. With regard to the Aiellos, they may also have views of the marsh to the northeast that will not be obstructed by the building. And these views may be currently obstructed by boats and equipment that are stored on 6 Julian Road. And to give you a little bit of an idea, excuse me, this is an aerial view, and this is the Aiello house. This blue rectangle is the approximate corner of the building. And so drawing a line straight, you can see that to the right of this yellow line, this would all be potentially views for the Aiellos. Not sure whether, there are typically boats parked here. There's a garage here. Some of their view might be obstructed over here, but again, many times there are boats and equipment parked there. And these buildings, which are existing, would clearly obstruct any views in this direction.
Attorney Ellison, just to interrupt you for a second, would you just point to where the Gull restaurant is? Because I think people can relate to that, and that will help them completely understand where you're talking about.
I believe this is the Gull building.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilors, do you have any questions right now up to this point? Okay, continue, thanks.
On the second site visit, where are the green flags on the crane that is representing the height of the closest corner to Julian and Essex Ave? The lift had 2 green flags on a piece of wood indicating the eave height at 49 feet and a flag at 30 feet. We did note at the site visit that the lift was not able to get to the exact edge of the building due to the boats on the trailer that had frozen into the ground. As we all remember, it was pretty cold that day. On the first site visit, it was in the exact location. Has the measurement of the height request been set from the top slab of the foundation? The height was shown with the measurement from the top of slab. The architect had informed us that the top of slab elevation was the elevation that we should use to best represent the height of the building once it's constructed. How thick is the slab? The approximate thickness of the slab is 1 foot 6 inches according to the elevation drawings. The ground at 99A Essex is not all the same level. When the slab of construction concrete is poured, it will be level. So the thickness will vary when poured, but will not exceed the 10-foot elevation or the 1.6 elevation. Is zoning to average grade? The height of a building for zoning purposes is measured from the average grade elevation. How far is the proposed building from the boulder at the end of Julian Road? Because the site plan does not show the boulders and we have a blown up portion of the site plan, we can't answer that with any accuracy. At the site visit, we responded that the building will be approximately 85 feet away from the houses that abut Julian Road. And you can see that the setback is 30 feet. The width of the Julian Road right-of-way is 40 feet. And then there's a setback to the houses of approximately 15 feet, adding up to 85 feet away. Are any of the current masts of sailboats higher than the proposed height of the building? The 53 feet 6 inch foot at the peak of the roof. Yes, most of the masts on the property exceed 53 feet 6 inches in height. Would this proposed structure prohibit any of the abutters from successfully using solar panels? We're not a solar company, so we don't know exactly what factors they consider when they're siting the panels. However, the roofs of the houses are in minimal shadow in the early mornings from the proposed building. And the roofs are also in shadow from their neighbors in both the morning and the evening at any given time of year. We believe that given the minimal shadowing from the proposed building in the early morning hours, the proposed building would not prohibit the use of solar panels. But again, we're not experts, so we're speaking from a layman's perspective on that. And so that is the end of the questions. And I do have, would like to address some of the issues that have been raised in social media and just by different counselors, if I might, unless anyone has further questions on the site visit.
So let me ask Council Holgram and Pat, do you have any questions to this point about what's been presented?
No further questions on the site visit, no.
Council Pat?
No further questions from what's just been presented here. I am eager to hear what Deb has to say about this other information.
Okay, great. Thank you, Attorney Ellison. So would you continue with the
Sure.
additional questions that you have?
Recently, there have been a couple court cases where the courts have reviewed our ordinances. And they've reminded us the importance of the words of the ordinance and that we should pay close attention to them. So I thought it would be helpful with regard to height, which appears to be the most talked about issue with regard to this project, that we look at what the ordinance says. So the ordinance says that the allowable height has to be consistent with the neighborhood character and not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood. And that's substantially detrimental, not just detrimental in any way, because of the obstruction of views and the overshadowing of the properties. The court in the Espresso case also mentioned that the city council had to narrowly define the neighborhood in that particular situation. And we've been focusing almost exclusively on 2 houses that are located on Julian Road. And I would suggest to you that the neighborhood is much larger than that. And this is an aerial view. And in blue, we've shown generally where the EB district is. So if you look, the areas in white, and they're white because of the snow, are the residential area that we've been talking about. And the 2 houses on Julian Road, I'm pointing with my pink cursor. So when you're looking at this neighborhood, you can see that a lot of it is actually in the business district. And looking at this next slide, we've highlighted certain commercial buildings. So the yellow buildings are existing metal buildings. The red buildings are garages that have doors. And the orange buildings are other commercial buildings and included the sewer treatment facility. So what I'd like to just, it's pretty obvious that there is a business district here. And when you're answering the questions that the ordinance requires you to consider, I would suggest that you must look at the entire neighborhood character and determine whether it's substantially detrimental to the entire neighborhood because of the obstruction of views and overshadowing. The fact that there will be some houses shadowed a small percentage of the year is, in my opinion, not enough to meet that standard. So regarding views, we talked a little bit about Mr. Coleman's view from his backyard, a back corner of the yard that did not appear to me to be used very often. And also from the Aiello property, which it's very hard to determine what those views are. Mr. Stephen Aiello had stated that there were views from the second floor. Obviously, we did not go into the building to see what those views were. From the first floor looking out to the marsh, there is actually a row of bushes or vines that are between the marina property and his property. And I believe those vines are on the marina property. So there isn't any view from the first floor at all out this side window. So again, I would just ask that you look at what is substantially detrimental when you're making your determination. There's also been a lot of misinformation on social media. And in reviewing the different letters that have been filed with the city clerk, and I hope that the councilors have taken the time to look at them, there are many letters in favor and many letters in opposition. And a lot of the letters in opposition parrot some of the things that are on social media that are not correct. And I'd just like to go through some of those. So one of the things we keep hearing is that this is the biggest building in Gloucester, and you'll be able to see it everywhere in Gloucester. And that's simply not true. I can't tell you exactly where you can see it from, but as I was thinking about this, I thought a good way to get a perspective is to think the hotel is taller than this building, and I can't see the hotel from everywhere in Gloucester. You can see it from some places and not others. Same thing with the new YMCA up at the Fuller School site. That building is taller than this building, and you can't see it everywhere in Gloucester. The wind turbines, one of them is 500 feet. That's hundreds of feet taller than this building. And you can't see that from everywhere in Gloucester. So this is not a building that's going to be able to be seen no matter where you are. Patrick Hurd, who's the general manager for the marina, suggested the last time that you should look for the masts, which, as we've said, are higher than the peak. And if you can see the mast from where you are, then you probably will be able to see this building. And so that's, some measure of that determination. Another thing that's been said is that a 747 could fit inside this building. Well, a 747 has a wingspan of 225 feet. It's 250 feet in length, and it's 63 feet high. So no, it couldn't fit in this building. It's also been mentioned over and over again that this is a 6-story building, and it's not. There is a 6-story building in this neighborhood. The LePage building is 6 stories. In the same breath or post where it states that this is a 6-story building, it shows the residential building at the Fuller project. And that building's a 4-story building. So we have a lot of 4-story buildings in Gloucester, Addison Gilbert, the Lorraine building on the corner of Middle and School Street. So there are an awful lot of 4-story buildings. They also state that this is a building for mega yachts. Mega yachts has a specific definition. It's a yacht that's at least 79 feet and sometimes over 600 feet. And this building would not be able to house those yachts. It's not tall enough to do that. It's not big enough to do that. The boats that they're going to house are 55 feet to 60 feet, and those are the ones that they house now. They're the ones that are at the marina now, existing customers. And so they will continue to be serviced by the marina. It'll also house boats that are a lot smaller than that. And then that it'll be a big, ugly metal building. And of course, you know, design and what a building looks like, it's, you know, the eye of the beholder, as they say. But the Dominics have spent a lot of money to make sure that this is not just a big, ugly building. They hired architects to design the building and to put in features like windows and awnings to bring the building down to a human scale and to also make it more aesthetically pleasing. It's designed to minimize the impact on the residential district. They're in an EB district, it's a business district, but they realize that they do have neighbors who are residences. And so they've done their best to make this building look nice and to be something that we can all be proud of in the city. There was also a statement that it's unhealthy for our children. There's no evidence that the storage building is going to be unhealthy for children. It's the same business they're doing now, only it'll be done inside. And then questions about exacerbating flooding. The building's been designed with breakaway panels in the event there is flooding, and any water will go into the building. But as John Judd, the engineer, stated that even without the panels, the water would not displace flood waters into other people's property because the building cannot displace the ocean. So DEP and the Conservation Commission have taken a close look at the building design and they've approved the design, and it will not exacerbate flooding. So I would ask that when you look at the letters in support that you notice that they're from a lot of different people. The majority are from longtime Gloucester residents who want to keep their boats here and they'd like to store them inside, both commercial and recreational. And as I said, the boats will be large and small. They're also from support vendors. So there are small businesses that provide services to the marina customers like boat lettering, electronics, boat canvas repair and installation. And then there are other marine businesses like fishing charters, diving and sightseeing. So it's not only the marina that's going to benefit from this building, it's also other small businesses in the city that rely on the marina customers. And there's no denying, as I've said before, it's a big building. It has to be big to fit its purpose. The size and the height are related to function as well as safety. And just like any other large and tall buildings all over Gloucester, if it's reduced in size, it's no longer going to function. It makes the movement of boats within the building more difficult and more dangerous the smaller it is. And if it's too small or too low, it just doesn't function at all. So I would suggest that the requested height is commercially reasonable. It's in a business district. The business uses sometimes require larger and taller buildings. And we see that again all over Gloucester with the commercial buildings. This building can't be in the industrial park because it needs to be close to the water. The larger boats that will be stored in this building cannot travel over the land, as we've said many times. If we want to be a marine community, we do need to support our marine businesses, especially when they're doing business in a business district where they're allowed to have this sort of building. So we're happy to answer any questions, but I just thought it was important to go through and address some of the things that have been on social media and brought up in the opposition letters that I've seen.
Oh, Councillor Gilman, you're muted.
It's because my dog was barking. Thank you, Councillor. Council Holgram and Pat, do you have questions to ask? Go ahead, Jen.
Yes, thank you. Attorney Ellison, I know that this has been asked before, but I don't recall what the answer was. How many jobs are going to be created, both permanent and temporary?
In the beginning there, we don't expect that there will be any new jobs. There will be jobs that will go from part-time to full-time, and people who have been laid off in the winter may not be laid off. In general, the marina is a large employer in the city. They have 300 plus employees, full and part-time. And so they're hoping that over time, this will actually generate jobs. But at this point, it will probably stay the same number of employees.
Thank you.
Council Pat, do you have questions? We can go back to Council Holgram.
Yeah. Yes, I have a couple of questions. one of the things is in one of the diagrams, you were talking about the businesses and, talking about the entire neighborhood. And I know that there is the Tar Family Farm is listed as in business. And I think you'll find that farms are not considered to be businesses. It's a farm. So that's been listed incorrectly. I think that's correct, Deb, if you would check it out.
Could I
And
explain that, Counselor, before you go?
sure, yeah,
What we were showing was what was the boundaries of the EB district. And so the farm is actually in the EB district. I wasn't saying that it was, specifically a business, but it's in the EB district. That's why it was colored blue.
okay. And I understand also that the social media, aspects that we're answering to, but I'd like to try and stick to what's come before us and the actual, ordinances and regulations that we're, trying to make decisions on versus commenting even on what other people say. Again, people obviously on social media can say whatever they want, but I'd like to try and focus on what's before us.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Do you want to go back to Counselor Holgram and then we can go back to you, Barry? Go ahead, Jen.
Yes, I've been mulling this over as far as how the boats that would be housed at this facility would affect traffic through the Cut Bridge, and also road traffic, foot traffic, if patrons of the marina would, how they would get over the bridge, etc. I am, but mostly I'm concerned about boat traffic through the Cut Bridge and delays on 127. I know we experience quite a bit of that every summer, but I was wondering if this housing the boats at this facility would affect that in any way.
Don't expect that there would be any issues with the Cut Bridge other than what we already have. These boats are already here. They're already staying at the marina, so there wouldn't be a change. With regard to delays on 127 or any other roads, the boats are going to come in from the water and then they're going to be brought over the marina property into the building. So they won't be going out onto Essex Avenue or any other traveling over the road. So it actually is a self-contained operation.
Thank you.
I'd just like to note that Counselor Cox is on the call. So we now have 7 of 9 counselors on the call. Welcome, Counselor Cox. Barry, we're back to you.
Okay, I have a few other things. Deb, when you were talking about the EB district, you were talking about the farm. I was just, I understand what you're saying, but I think I'm referring more to the fact that it's a farm and there are people living there. So that's one of the places that will have some obstruction of views. And as we're looking at, the different ordinances and what we have to look at, the neighborhood, and you were talking about the entire neighborhood. I agree that it's a larger neighborhood than just houses on Julian Road. However, I'm very concerned, even if we talk about, say, shadowing is on one house. The fact that the neighborhood is, 20 properties, it still is in effect, if it's on one house or one property, that is in effect. The views, obviously, if a building is 48 feet and it's, ultimately looking at over 200 feet in length, it is going to block views. So I'm concerned about that. I'm also I'm a huge supporter of the economy in Gloucester, and I think the marina is one of the largest and most important to our overall economic situation in the city. I have some questions, and I think I asked before, and I'm not sure I quite understood the answer that we were given. But this property where the application is owned by, I believe, just by Tobin and Drew. And I believe, I'm not sure if they're are they the majority holders in the marina, et cetera. And I'm not sure why. Is there a reason that the marina itself is not part and parcel to this application? If it's not, if it's not legally connected because of either financing or something else?
Go ahead, Attorney
So,
Allison. That'd be
if
great
I
if you could respond.
Sure. Let me just address a few of the things. With regard to obstruction of views, one thing we have to remember is that this is not an open, pristine, beautiful area. It's a parking lot. It has boats in there. It has equipment parked. It has cars parked, depending on the time of year. So if you drive up and down Essex Avenue and you look over at this building or this parking lot, you don't see very much. You don't see the river. And I can't say exactly whether or not there are views from the Tar Farm, but I would expect that they would be obstructed just as well as people who are driving up and down Essex Avenue. So when I think of obstruction of views, I think of obstruction of scenic views. Any house that you put up or any sort of building that you put up is going to block some view, whether it's a view that anybody cares about or wants is, I guess, the question. And here, what it's going to do is take over some of this parking lot and put things inside that are now outside. With regard to the ownership, and I guess it would be helpful for me if I knew what your concern is, Counselor, and then maybe I can answer your question a little bit better.
Okay, again, I think I had brought it up before. If they are not connected specifically, I understand that if the applicant here was to decide that either this, if this was approved, that it wasn't working financially, they decide they wanted to do something else. I understand there are regulations that, say what happens, but is there anything that prevents the applicant from changing the use of the building? In other words, if it's not tied into the marina, if they could use it for something else. And I understand, I'm not sure what with our permit specifically controls that, and whether they'd have to come back to the council to change the use of the building, et cetera, or also would they, are there any agreements between the marina, whether that is, again, Tobin or Drew or another group, totally, between them and the applicant as to what might happen, going forward if it's approved.
Okay.
So I recall that was asked before, and I think your answer was that would come back in front of the city council, correct? If there was a change of use?
Certainly if it was going to be changed to something that's not marine storage, that's what you're approving. You're approving a marine storage facility. So if they decided to use it for something else, then I would expect, just speaking in general terms, that it would have to come back before the council. And I guess I'd just like to say that I don't think that it would matter that the ownership really matters with regard to that. I think it's your permit that really governs this use. So even if the property was owned by the marina, both pieces were owned by the exact same legal entity, which they're not, I don't think that would change anything. That single entity could also decide that it wants to use the building separately or for something else. It is the reason there are separate ownerships are for financial reasons. The loan that they have for the 99 Essex Avenue is a small business administration loan. And that's different than the loan that they have on the marina property. And so they had to do them separately. And the loan is tied to the land and the building. So that's the legal reason for having them separate. And as I said, I think from a practical perspective, if your concern is that they might change the use of the building, I think that's where the permit comes in to protect.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask a couple of questions.
Thank you for clarifying.
So we've spent quite a bit of time thinking about 3.1.6B, the height portion, and I appreciated you going through that earlier in the presentation. I've got a couple of questions that I wanted to bring up about some of the other special counsel permit components that are part of this. In terms of 2.3.4, number 13, marine-related service, storage, or repair limited primarily in the MI district to commercial fishing boats. So obviously, a storage of boats is very into that, but I'm interested to get a better perspective from you, Attorney Ellison, and maybe the Dominics, in terms of what proportion of all those boats do you believe will be commercial?
I think it's really hard to say, but that provision of the ordinance where it says in the MI district, they should be commercial fishing, that doesn't apply here because this isn't the MI district.
Okay.
That only applies in the MI district. I think the market is going to determine, you know, whether the boats are commercial, recreational, what size they are. That's what's going to determine what goes in that building.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying. And then on 5.5.2, just want to read these and maybe you could elaborate and answer them because we've seen your presentation several times. And under 5.5.2, no building permit for principal building shall be issued for construction on land less than 10 feet elevation above USGS datum except, is it datum or datum?
I don't know. I think it's probably either one.
Okay, except on approval of a special permit for an exception by the city council. Such special permit shall be issued only if it is demonstrated by the applicant that the proposed development will pose no hazard to the health or safety of the occupants thereof. So could you elaborate on that? Because that's something that we covered a long time ago, and maybe you could just give us a summary of how that fits into this permit.
Well, this permit is not for an occupied building. It's for a storage building. So there will not be occupants, so to speak, of this building, and therefore there will be no danger to the health and safety of occupants because no one will be living there or occupying the building. There won't be any offices or anything like that. It's a storage facility.
Okay, so, but you had said that there will be a few people there and owners would be able to go in with, if they were attended by someone. So there will be people, you know, coming to and
Right.
from.
But occupied speaks to someone who lives there or works there, you know,
Okay,
like that an office building or a residence or something like that. Whereas this is really a storage building with people who are, you know, moving boats around and things like that, but not occupying it in the normal sense.
okay, thank you. Could you put back the photo that you showed of all the neighboring buildings in the EB district?
Mhm.
You would?
This one with the colors or
Yes.
not? Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Okay. Would you be able to, when we are in front of the council, add to your presentation kind of just the sizes of some of those local buildings that are indicated in there? Because I'm going back to your question about neighborhood character. and it would be helpful for me just to kind of understand kind of the size, just in general. It doesn't have to be exact, but in general, and then the height of those buildings, just so we can understand how this whole location feels and looks from a number standpoint. I mean, we've been there a number of times, and you've given us some numbers, like for that little storage over by where the service center is, and but if we're looking at this as a whole EP district, that would be useful information for me. I don't know how you feel, Council Holgram and Council Pat, about that request. Is that something that you think is reasonable?
Yes,
Okay.
The
if that
only,
isn't too much, yeah.
I- For me, that picture or diagram, whatever we want to call it, is very helpful. I would like to even see it done two ways. One with as it is, and then secondly with the proposed building, situated in the same diagram.
Counselor Gilman, I'd certainly be happy to provide you with this information, but I'm not really sure how I can get that information. It's not, as far as I know, it's not publicly available. So I think someone would have to go out and actually measure the building.
Wouldn't the assessor's office have that?
They wouldn't have the height. They might have the square footage,
Okay.
gross square footage, but not the footprint square footage necessarily.
Okay. Well, I will check with the assessor's office and see if they could provide that for us, because I'm just asking for some general numbers. It's not, it doesn't have to be absolutely precise.
And I'll see what we can do, but that's my only concern, because I know I have looked in the past for heights of buildings because that was an issue and I haven't been able to really find it.
Mhm.
But if the assessors say they do have that information, then that would be very helpful for this project and certainly for me going forward on others.
Okay, great. Other questions, counselors?
Not at this time.
Oh,
Um,
Council Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. And I appreciate the responses we've gotten to Chairperson Gilman's questions about different sections like 2.3.4, 13, 5.5.2 and 3, et cetera. But obviously it's part of the application for the permit. And even though in some of these cases it says primarily in the MI district, et cetera, I think we have to consider those things. They are part of the application for the permit, and we can't ignore them as part of the process.
Right, and we, in our original presentation, did go through each permit that we're requesting, and we intend to do that again at the city council hearing.
Right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was very helpful. And just for the public to know, there's 16 members of the public, well, minus the applicants and Council Cox. So right now there are about 12 or 13 members of the public, which is always nice to know that they're watching and they can get this information on Zoom and they can get the packets as well. And we've certainly, I think the first time Attorney Ellison that we heard this was back in April, correct? Was the first
Beginning of May, maybe.
beginning of May. Okay, it was one of the first Zoom sessions that we had. I remember that. Okay. I will ask if any members of the council that are not on this subcommittee want to ask a question, not discussion, because that will wait for the full meeting. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Council LeBlanc, Council Nolan, O'Hara, Council Cox, any questions? Count, nope, okay, great. Any members of the public have a question to ask? Not discussion, just a question. Okay, go ahead. Peter Coleman, would you introduce yourself? And this is not a public hearing, and we will not entertain any discussion, just a question for the applicant, questions only.
Understood. Good evening, Peter Coleman, 105R Essex Ave. Madam Chair, committee members, Attorney Ellison. I have a technical question regarding the preparation and methodology of the shadow study. I'm wondering if the applicant could please clarify how or why they're presenting shadow data for abutters homes when they clearly indicated they acquired hundreds of data points on 99A Essex Ave, not data points of any of the abutting homes. Nonetheless, the applicant presents a shadow study of abutting properties that may or may not be accurate due to an incomplete data set according to Troika.
So that's a fair question. Attorney Ellison, would you answer that?
I'm not sure I can answer that completely because I did not do the shadow study. We relied upon our architects to do that. And I believe that they did have data points throughout the neighborhood and not just data points on 99A Essex. But I know that Patrick Hurd was very involved with the architect. So perhaps if he could be allowed to speak, he may have some information that he
Sure.
can share on that.
Grace, would you let, oh, Patrick's in. So Patrick, unmute yourself and introduce yourself to us with, that would be great. Thank you. Welcome.
Good, sorry. Good evening, Patrick Hurd, General Manager, Cape Ann Marina, 75 Essex Avenue, Gloucester. I don't know if I can answer the question specifically, but I do know when we collected the data points, we went all over the inner and exterior portions of our property. So we did collect data points well within the neighborhood. From those data points, we were able to continue some of them with some Google Earth shots and others, but the majority of the points that we have were captured by what we got throughout the entire property. Our architect would probably have to fine tune that answer for you, but the initial were amazing to us how many data points we got well within, outside of our property.
Okay, that's great. And Attorney Ellison, maybe you can get that answer for us.
Attorney Ellison, maybe you can get that answer for us in presentation.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we will have the architect address that question. We will have the architect address that question.
Do we have a technical problem right now? Are you hearing an echo?
A technical problem right now. Are you hearing?
Patrick may need to
echo?
mute himself.
Okay,
May need to mute himself.
now, okay, no more echo. Okay, great. So thank you, Patrick. All right, Deborah Liakis, go ahead. Would you introduce yourself and unmute yourself? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deborah Liakos, 41 Woodward Avenue. My question is, I'm kind of new to the process on this. I've had other things going on, so I haven't been too involved, but so I have a few questions and they may have been answered in the past. How many boats is this facility going to, what's the capacity of the facility? Number of boats? That's my first question.
Go ahead, Deb.
It depends on the size of the boats. So
Okay.
if they're all small boats, there'll be more. If there are more larger boats, there'll be less.
Okay. That being said, so if that facility fills up, depending on how many boats are in the storage unit, the existing parking lot where all the boats are stored outside now, would all the overflow go to that outside area too? So would we be storing both like a 4-story building plus the outside parking lot would become what it is now with all the boats that are steered there? So I mean, are we increasing the boat capacity on that site more than it is now?
I don't think you're increasing the overall capacity. Some of the boats will be inside instead of outside, but there still will be boats stored outside.
So that means that we could potentially have what's there now and a facility that is 55 feet tall also filled with boats.
it would cover the boats in that area. So there are already boats stored in the area where the building will be. So
Yeah, but you're doing a multi-level building, which, I mean, we know what.
it's not a multi-level building. It's a one-level building.
You're
Okay.
telling me those boats that will be inside they'll only be stored on the ground level? There'll be no like racking systems where they'll put them on lifts and lift them up into storage? Like they do over in East Gloucester at the Browns Yacht Yard?
The building is being built at the height that it is so that it can store taller boats. So those taller boats will need to have the floor area for that. I can't tell you exactly what will happen. There's no intention at the moment to do a racking system, which is
No
what,
intention at the moment.
Well-
Well, my concern is about
Yeah,
the amount
Deb,
of fuel that is, go ahead.
I don't want this to become like the public hearing right now, so.
Well, there's just these legitimate questions, Val, that, you know, it's like, we're looking at what's existing there now, the number of boats that are stored there. And then if you put a facility on there and then you're telling me possibly that there's, you know, okay, we approved this building, it will hold X number of boats on the ground level, but will we put racking systems in that will double or triple the capacity of those boats in that thing, which will inadvertently, I mean, this will all affect traffic within the area, equipment being moved
Okay.
back and forth within the building.
All right, I'm going to ask Deb that you speak at the public hearing on.
Okay,
if I could, Madam Chair, I did
Yeah.
get some information from my client, and it's difficult because we have to text back and forth. Obviously, we can't speak to each other. So there won't be any increase in the number of boats because, as I said, they'll be covered instead of outside. And there will not be any racks, according to what she said.
okay,
Thank
so it'll
you.
be a one-story storage facility. That's it. Okay,
Okay, thank you for getting that
Okay.
clarification.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Mary Ann Butcher, would you introduce yourself and let's make sure that we keep this to a question only.
Hi, Mary Ann Albert Boucher.
Oh, I'm sorry, Boucher. I'm
No
sorry, Mary Ann.
No
I should know
problem.
that by now.
I'd like to know, I heard Attorney Ellison say it was 85 feet away from the houses. Is it 85 feet away from the property line of the neighbors, or is it 85 feet from the building to their actual homes? I'm just curious.
It's from the side of the proposed building to the front of their homes.
Okay, so it's not just to their property line. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're done with the questions. Counselors, anything more to ask before we get to the
No.
next step? Okay, I just have a couple things I wanted to mention. I wanted to mention that Attorney Ellison took the time to update the Q&A that she provided for the last site visit. So that is in your packet. And that was when the heights were changed slightly and from 40 to 48.5 feet. That's why we had the second visit. So all those numbers in that initial report have been modified. So there is an addendum with all the accurate information in the packet. So the public that are listening tonight, make sure that you see that because she did take the time to update that. So I will entertain a motion, and then what we will do is we will have a rigorous discussion of what is in front of us. So Council Holgram, would you like to do that?
Yes, I'd like to move that the Planning and Development Committee vote to recommend that the City Council grant to Dominic Holdings LLC a special council permit SCP 2020-002 for the property located at Essex Avenue, number 99A, Assessors Map 218, Lot 126, pursuant to Gloucester zoning ordinance, section 3.1.6b, building heights in excess of 35 feet, section 2.3.413, marine-related service, storage, or repair limited primarily in the MI district to commercial fishing vessels, and section 5.5, lowland requirements to construct an approximately 34,320 square foot indoor climate-controlled boat storage facility. This permit is made on the basis of plans and elevations dated January 28th, 2020, and submitted to the city clerk on February 5th, 2020, entitled Site Plan 99A Essex Ave, Gloucester, Mass. Detail sheet 99A Essex Ave, Gloucester, Mass. And plans and elevations dated January 29th, 2020, and submitted to the city clerk on February 5th, 2020, entitled Cape Ann Marina Boat Storage Proposal. Subject to new information and/or debate that results from the public hearing, this special council permit is deemed to be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Council Holgram and seconded by Council Pat. So let's discuss this now in terms of our recommendation to the full committee. First, let's begin with the 2.3.4. Footnote 13, marine-related service, storage, or repair limited primarily in the MI district to commercial fishing boats. Any comments about that as terms of what we've heard?
No. Well, Councilor Pratt, please start. Thank you.
Just a comment that, again, it is a request here for this, and this is not the MI district, and most of the boats here are not commercial. They are mostly, I believe, recreational, but I do understand that it is marine-related storage, service storage, or repair, and in this case, not repair inside the building. So I understand why they're requesting this in their permit.
Likewise.
Yeah, and I think I'll ask maybe Greg Catamatori to come so he can just make sure that we're crystal clear on why that's part of this permit, because Councilor Pat brought up that it's limited primarily in the MI district, and I just want to make sure that we're clear about that. And then so then let's move to 5.5.2. I already read the first part of that. And then the rest is without limiting the generality of the foregoing, the following are presumed to be hazardous to our health or safety. A is the floor level of any structure for human occupancy, less than 12 feet elevation. Individual sewage disposal system subject to inundation in the event of coastal flooding to 10 feet elevation, methods of filling or excavation subject to displacement by coastal flooding to 10 feet elevation, water supplies subject to interruption or contamination in the event of coastal flooding to 10 feet elevation. Any comments about any of that, councilors? Council Holgram.
I want to say I have deliberately avoided the social media chatter on this special permit application because I want to look at this with the clearest eyes I possibly can. I don't believe that any chemicals or devices or substances would be used in this facility that would pose any hazard to the health and safety of the people in the abutting buildings. And I know that there have been insinuations about that, but again, I've tried to avoid it. I don't see any evidence of that, and I do believe really it's just strictly a storage building. That's my comment on that particular
Okay.
item.
Thank you. Council Pat, anything to add to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree basically with what Councilor Holmgren is saying. I see what these requirements are, and I don't see that the approval of this building will be in any way in, not in compliance with these two, 5.5.2 or 5.5.3.
Okay, thank you. Um, I will request that our fire chief just weighs in on that prior to our next meeting. Just because I'm sure that there are precautions, and at this point, we're probably not going to ask the applicant to continue discussing this, but I just want to make sure that, I know when we store our boat for the winter, we remove the gas and we remove the oil, and there are precautions that we take. And I'm quite certain that they will take those same precautions, but those would be the chemicals that I would be concerned with because they're all under one building. And I'm sure that this is part of what the ZBA and other groups looked at prior to here, but I will just make sure that we get some confirmation that that's all clear. So, but I think that that's a valuable, just a thought. And, but I think that there are things that there's a sequence when people store their boat that typically is well managed. So the next, anything else to add to that? Okay. So now we have, we know that we have standards to be applied, 1.8.3, and Attorney Ellison has brought that up before. That includes the social, economic, community needs that will be served by the proposed use, traffic flow and safety, adequacy of utilities and other public services, neighborhood character and social structure, qualities of the natural environment, and potential fiscal impact. Anybody have any comments about 1.8.3, standards to be applied?
Yeah, Counselor Pat, would you like to go first?
Go ahead.
Sure. Happy
Go ahead,
to.
Counselor.
The biggest concern about this entire project to me is the neighborhood and how this project would affect the neighborhood. I do believe the Cape Ann Marina is one of the most important parts of the economy in the city of Gloucester. And everything that goes along with it is relative to that success of not only the marina, but the city as well. However, I find that either discussing with neighbors, and again, taking the larger view that Attorney Ellison has said of what the neighbors are, I have a problem supporting the part that this is is proper for the neighborhood, for views, for again, for some effects of shadowing, etc. And I would have a hard time meeting the requirements that are before us to support it because of that.
So let me just read the full part of that, because there's an entry statement as well. Special permit pursuant to the section or section 5.30 shall be granted upon only written determination by the special permitting granting authority that the proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this ordinance, and that it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, the zoning district, or the city to such an extent as to outweigh the beneficial effects of said use. In reviewing special permit applications, the special permit granting authority, which in this case is us, shall consider but not limit to the following 6 factors. So it doesn't have to be all of those factors, but it can be one. So Counselor, I heard that you were concerned with item D, neighborhood character. Counselor Holgram, do you have any concerns about any of those, or any matters to support in any of those? Because we should be looking at the totality of all of these. Go ahead.
I agree with Counselor Pat. My biggest concerns are also the neighborhood. And I am specifically considering the dissenting neighbors' assertions that the neighborhood character and their quality of life would be significantly impacted by the height of the building. I do want to say that with regard to scenery and scenic views, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and they have the right to the view that they have. I looked at the assessor's database at both the residential and some of the commercial buildings surrounding this property, and they were all built in the early to mid 20th century for the most part. I couldn't find anything built past 1975, although I certainly didn't look at all of them. I looked at 10 or 11. I'm just looking here. I also, with regard to the economic impact, I have no doubt of the Dominic's commitment to Gloucester. I have no doubt of their energy. They have done a tremendous job with the marina. I just, if there are no new jobs being created, if the capacity is not going to increase the number of boats being stored, if the number is the same, then I don't see demonstrable evidence of a positive economic impact here. So I'm not going to vote in support of this project at this time. Certainly, I reserve the right to change my opinion between now and when we do the public hearing.
So thank you, Counselor. So let's spend a little bit of time as well on 3.1.6B, and I think we've covered quite a bit of that in our conversation. Building heights in excess of 35 feet. Building heights in excess of 35 feet may be authorized by special permit issued by the City Council. Said permit shall contain such conditions as the council deems necessary and shall only issue upon a written determination by the council that such increase in allowable height is consistent with the neighborhood character and will not be substantially detrimental to the neighborhood because of obstruction of views, overshadowing of other properties, impairment of utilities, or other adverse impacts. So do we want to elaborate any more on the component of 3.1.6B? Council Pett, do you have anything to add to that?
I could elaborate a little bit.
Great.
Just
Go ahead.
based on the number of site visits that we've done, and I'm very thankful for both the applicant and the neighbors being so accommodating as to allow us to visit the site several times now. My vision of the building and its height and its mass from any neighbor's yard is frankly overwhelming to me. And I realize that there are other structures shadowing these buildings and properties. I realize that the applicant has a right to build, and I certainly applaud that right, and I don't want to take it away, but I can't argue with the neighbor's assertion that this will detract from their view, such as it is.
Thank you. Council Pett?
Yeah, that would be my basic feeling as well. They obviously have the right. It's a commercial property, and there's commercial uses there, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate them trying to expand or provide the best service to their customers that they can. But again, I feel that the effect on the neighborhood to me is the factor that is holding me totally back on this project in so many ways, not only from the mass of from the somewhat of shadowing, even if it's whether it's one house or two or three or whatever, and views all around. And again, views is something, as I think Attorney Ellison said very well, and it's been said by others, that the views or beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And I just think that I don't know anyone that would think that looking at a structure that's as a minimum, 48 and a half feet tall, regardless of what length it is or whatever, that that would be something that would be attractive to their views. So in that sense, I cannot support that part of it.
So my comments, having been to the site 3 different times, because I wanted to go back on an additional day to look at it more closely in the morning. I do understand that the winter solstice is the most detrimental to shadowing. I absolutely understand that. So the site visits occurred when the sun was low, and therefore the abutting properties had the most effect of any other season. In my perspective, both a 105R Essex Ave, which is the Coleman House, and 4 Julian Road, which is the Aiello House, the shadowing for the morning hours this time of year is pretty incredible for this time of year. And they're not summer homes, they're all year round. And that I really tried to be as objective as I could. And it kind of surprised me. It was just, I understand that there are already shadows there. I understand all of that, but this is significant shadowing to those homes that I mentioned. And then the other thing is in terms of the view. So this facility is, I might be wrong, but my memory serves me as being 145 feet wide. And I want to say 245 feet long. This is the size of Newell Stadium minus 55 feet, because the football stadium is 300 feet. So give or take, I'm not talking about the end zones, but just the yard. So in trying to visualize the size of this building, and realizing that it's 85 feet from the homes on Julian Road, and also my experience being at like the Causeway Restaurant and kind of looking over to see, I can, when I'm at the Causeway Restaurant, I can see the water in the summer all the time. I can see the water where the boats are and the gull is to the left of it. And, so I think that this is more than just the immediate neighborhood. I think that there are other abutters that will be affected by the height of this. And counselors were here for 39 feet and above, and that's why we're here. And it's just a huge building. So I will concur that I'm not in a position to vote in favor, but we'll do a roll call in a second. But always be reminded that this is subject to us listening to the public comments and really looking closely to every letter that we've received. And today we all got our Google Doc and we got all the letters in front of us, and there's a spreadsheet. And I'm sure members of the public should know that send your emails in by preferably this Friday at noon, so we can get them quickly and spend the time. But there's a clause in our motion that Councilor Holgram made and Councilor Pett seconded, that it's subject to new information in or debate that results from the public hearing. And I just want to mention that. That we will always be open-minded to listening to the public, but right now my vote is no. So anyone else want to add anything to our discussion?
Not at this time.
Okay, Council Pat?
Yeah, again, I would like to thank the applicant, through Attorney Ellison. I'd like to thank Drew and Tobin and Mr. Hurd and all the others for all the work they've done on answering every question. Obviously, they're trying to get their permit done, and they're doing it in the most favorable way that they can, but they've worked constantly with us and put a tremendous effort into this. And even though I'm not, at this point, going to be voting to support it, I want to thank them. And I want to remind everyone that we still do have a public hearing in front of the council, and that I am open to whatever, comes before us then, before we take a vote as a council.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Holgram, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, and I would like to reiterate on that. There's been a new level of just unbelievable professionalism through this. And so not only were all the questions answered for both site visits, they were answered with visuals and examples and showing it online. The accommodations at the site visit in the middle of winter, twice, with the lifts, with flags, with detail, the shadowing survey, the detail that we've been through that at 2 different meetings has been significant. And I do urge any members of the public to please look at everything that's out there on our Zoom meetings that we've had, because it's very, very helpful. And, the professionalism and the willingness when the architect and Patrick Hurd, the GM, went back with Attorney Ellison's direction to give us some different numbers, at by right at 30 feet, and a look at how it might look right now with just the boats there and no building. And it was just consistent accommodation, and that is so much appreciated. So if there's no more further questions, I'm ready to take a roll call. Okay, Council Holgram,
No,
Council Pat,
No.
Council Gilman, no. So 0 in favor, 3 opposed. Do remember that all of our motions are in the affirmative because they're Robert's rules when you read it. And the public hearing will be next Tuesday, which is February 9th, correct? And we will be back there and make sure that people that want to weigh in favor or oppose, get your letters in to the council if you can't be there real time. And I appreciate everyone's attention to this matter. This is probably one of the biggest projects we've had in front of us, and councilors, thank you. I appreciate it. And to the applicant, once again, thank you. So is there anything else that we need to discuss? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second?
Roll call, Council Holgram,
Yes.
Council Pat,
Yes, again, thank you to all at the Cape Ann Marina and all the applicant and their participants.
Thank
and
you.
Council
Thank you
Gilman.
very much, counselors.
Yes, thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Be well, be safe.